on Sunday?
It's close.
Is that pile left or to blow away?
I gotta go back to Lori for the chipper and a couple guys again. Hopefully they say yes. But yeah, over 150 people when it was all said and done. $10 load. So
Yeah.
good times.
We're live.
All right. Close enough.
Yeah. Everybody's watching the clock like we're in school. All right. Good morning, everybody, both here and those that may be watching us online. This is the regular BoCC meeting for June 10th, 2020. Before we call to order, I'd like to invite Dallas Schroeder up to provide an invocation and lead us in the pledge.
Let us pray. Father in heaven, God our Creator, how good it is to come to you. Father, acknowledging you just as that you are our Creator and that you love us. And Father, that you are the ruler of the universe. And Father, that's so reassuring when we see our world out of control at times, Father, things that hurt us and discourage us. But Father, we know that in the end you're still in control, and we thank you for that. Father, our country's in turmoil. And Father, there's unrest, and we just ask for understanding and for peace to come back to our land. Father, that the damage that's been done will be healed. Father, we can move forward as a unified people. Father, I also pray for all the decision makers in our nation, from our president down to our commissioners, Father, and everybody in between. Father, they turn to you for guidance. Father, that you lead them with your divine wisdom. Father, just pray you'll be with us just now in this meeting, that everything will be done according to your plan in an orderly fashion. And Father, we do pray that you'll be with our first responders across the county, Father, that you protect them. It's in Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dallas. Alrighty, it's 9:02. Amanda, could you call the roll, please? Here?
Here.
Here.
Alrighty. First item we have is approval of the agenda. As I understand, we don't have any changes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item we have is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Elected officials, department head, staff reports.
Making sure I'm on. Christina Stanton, CDS Director, wanted to come up. You guys had asked for a presentation from the applicant for a conceptual plan for Greenland Communities, the tiny homes project. Earlier this week, we did receive a formal withdrawal for that application.
Okay, so they're not going to pursue that project?
No, that is not moving forward within Elbert County. So I wanted to give you that update.
Thank you. Thanks.
Commissioners, I have a couple things. One is the Elbert County response on COVID-19. Just kind of an update to everybody. We have started the wrapping up the move from response to recruiting. The response period being a recovery, the response phase being the, it's an active emergency. How are we handling that? How do we make sure everybody has PPE? Is all our first responders protected? Are we making sure that our nursing homes and our are protected and to more of a recovery phase, and that is, okay, so now we're in the recovery phase, we've still got cases, we still need to provide PPE, we still need to make sure that our first responders are safe, but in addition to that, how do we start reopening and phasing back in normal operations to everything. So just wanted to let everybody know that the CDPHE has approved our variance request. I think that was announced on social media, and the supplement that went with that. We've added a second supplement, and we're waiting to hear from that. We should hear that on that in the next 5 to 7 business days. And then in addition, we have been notified by the state that we are eligible for about $2.2 million in CARES Act funding, and that is Elbert County, based on population of Elbert County, and we are working with all the incorporated towns to come up with a cooperative agreement and a share of that money, and we will then submit that to DOLA, who's going to be managing the funds. Once we all four get our agreement signature on the cooperative agreement, it'll go to DOLA, and DOLA will enter a contract with the county and the town separately to distribute that allocation based on the federal guidelines on uses for that money.
Okay. So once the allocation's decided amongst us, we don't have any oversight, we don't have to provide any oversight or accounting for the town's piece, just...
Correct. The state is the responsible agency, and they will enter a contract with Kiowa, Elizabeth, and Simla separately for their portion of that money, and those towns will draw down upon that amount based on eligible expenses that they have incurred or that they will incur by 12/31. Same thing for the county. The county share, we will submit eligible expenses for reimbursement up through 12/31. The okay. Key on that money is that it expires 12/31. So we're looking at several options right now in the county, not only to reimburse us for our emergency responses and PPE purchases and some of that stuff that we've already done, but planning on what's going to become. How do we help our businesses? How do we help our nonprofits? How do we help our citizens between now and 12/31?
All right. Yeah, maybe if there's a discussion item at the next meeting, we can look a little bit about just the broad plan for how those monies will be used. Yep.
Once I get an agreement with all the towns, I'll be able to share all that information. We're still kind of in negotiations. I know Kiowa met last night and approved it, subject to one line added to the agreement. I've had conversations with the town of Elizabeth. They're kind of gave me a thumbs up, and the town of Simla. I haven't heard if Simla approved it last night or not, and then it's on I believe, June 23rd agenda for Elizabeth to sign that cooperative agreement. But by the 24th, I should be able to brief you exactly what's going on.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? No? Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. I have another one too, and that's the 2021 budget planning, just to kind of an ongoing update on that until we get this budget kicked off and started for next year. We are planning a meeting, this internal meeting this Thursday, to kind of look at the COVID-19 revenue impact analysis. Once that's done, that'll help give us the guidance that we need. I met with finance this morning. We're going to schedule a budget kickoff meeting for elected officials and directors on the 26th, I think, of June at 10 a.m., but I'll get an email out to everybody on that. Okay. That's going to kind of be just to set the stage meeting. We know we're going to have some COVID-19 responses rolling into next year. We know where we will be with the audit. We know where we will be with revenue projections for 2020. My intent is to let the directors, department heads, and elected officials know that it's not going to be a big growth year. So let's think smart as we start budget planning.
No, I think everybody's looking forward to 2020 ending, so working on 2021 is probably a good thing. Alrighty. Do we have anything else? Okay, not seeing any. This point, we'll open the meeting for public comment from citizens. If anybody would like to speak, we just ask that you give your name, your address, and keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
I'm
Hello,
Jean
ma'am.
Claggett, and I lived in Elbert previously and had to move away with 9/11, and right now I'm staying with Paige Evans out on Whisper Crossing Ranch. I think you all know her.
Yeah.
So I'm a sculptor, and Chris and I were talking one time about some public art
Yeah.
and the growth of the county and so on. So I'm doing some sculptures that I'm submitting to the stock show. They've got a $400,000 budget based on their 1% for the arts for the stock show, the new park that they're doing. And I've got several pieces, about 4 pieces that are gonna fit there.
Yeah.
One of them is already life-size. And one of them was the Save the Cowboy. And I originally planned, then talked about doing, Roger Evans, but his wife didn't like the idea. So Chuck Hughes modeled for it, and I'm going back to Chuck Hughes, and he's going to promote the thing for me. So anyway, with the Elbert County Fairgrounds, there's plenty of space, and all of these sculptures would be appropriate. One's a young girl. I volunteered at the art show, and a cutest little girl, future stock show princess, came in, and I used a model pony that I had to sell as the pony, and the little girl's riding bareback, and along with her Aussie dog. And then another one is a young cattle showman who is actually Woody Smith's grandson, showing a heifer, and then Save the Cowboy, and going back to be Chuck Hughes. So anyway, those are available, and with the growth of the county, if you did any kind of 1% for the arts, there would be plenty in the budget for this. And also I have done work for Leslie Malone, and I think it's important enough to start getting some good art featuring people. And I have her cell phone number, and I could call and do a joint effort of a donation from John and Leslie, which, as I said, I've done work for them before. And try and get some public art going in the county. So starting with the fairgrounds and this historic building right here. I mean, there's probably historic people that could be recognized. So hopefully we can start a new trend.
Okay.
Any questions?
Just quick comment. I know when we spoke last, you had talked the potential of like miniatures or resins that could be sold to make money for larger, full size. And I think it would be worth sitting down perhaps with the Fair Board and our facilities folks to kind of flesh out how that might work for us. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just saying, perhaps if we could arrange a sit down with our Fair Board and our facilities folks to kind of talk through some potential ways to look at growing some funding. I know when we last talked, it was pre-COVID and things. I mean, the money picture's a little different than when it once was. But I do thank you for coming in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a sample of my work.
Okay.
And I'm only at pages for another month.
Oh,
So
okay.
then I've got to move to someplace permanent.
Okay.
And I don't know if it'll be in Elbert County or I'll go down towards Colorado Springs, because my son works at Broadmoor.
Okay.
And of course, they have 2 wonderful art galleries, so that is a win-win for me.
Okay. For this book, can we hang on to this for a bit to look through, or?
I've got some phone numbers that I need to get
Okay.
out of there, but yeah, you can keep the book, I'll just.
Okay, I just want to make sure we weren't taking it from you. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Do we have any other public comment? Diana?
Good Good morning, it's Diana Edstrom, and I am at 26060 County Road 41 in Elbert. I just wanted to express my support as well as my thanks to all of the men and women in our Sheriff's Department. With all of the turmoil and unrest in our country right now and calls for defunding the police and attacks on our police, what our Sheriff's Department does for us is just so important, and they keep us safe. Sometimes they go out in the morning and they don't know if they're going to come home or not, and I wanted to just say that, and may God keep them all safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I think everybody in this room shares that sentiment, but thank you for voicing it. Alrighty, I see no other members of the public. We had no email comments presented and nobody that wanted to be called during this meeting. I don't think that's changed since last night. Alrighty, okay, so next up we have discussion items. We have two. The first is Christina Stanton again, discussions on proposed changes and updates to the planning and zoning regulations.
Apologize. I'd be reminded about this one, so thank you, Sam. Because I was busy last week trying to get the packet together for Planning Commission. So this, I just attached a memo that hits most but not all of the items in this. Couple of the things like adding and notary to the signature blocks for rezone and site development plan. A lot of the work in this amendment was combining the LI and GI into just I. There were 11 uses in total that were different between the two districts when comparing them. So it didn't really make sense to have two separate districts for such minimal uses. Adding co-locate process to the regulations. I think it may have been in one of our older versions of regulations, but was not carried forward in our current one. So we caught that and updated it while we were working on updates to our permitting program. Changing side and rear setback and accessory structures in agricultural district. This was brought to light because of a discussion with our building official, who stated that an unlimited building in the ag district by building code had to be set back 60 feet. So we're going to change our setback from 50 feet to 60 feet so that we line up with the building code. Making some changes in the non-residential, again, to combine the LI, GI districts setbacks. There were also some references to the building code within that table currently. So I had another discussion with the building official on that, and he said those didn't make any sense, so those references are coming out. Okay. We added a work session as a process in the review process for plan unit development and special districts, since we are taking the concept plan as we know it now and moving it out of subdivision and moving it into the zoning regulations. Most planners, when they hear the phrase concept plan, we think vague plan, kind of like what we just had with Ward's project on the EPC and what we're going to be seeing with leaks, where we have a plethora of uses, or we may have rough dimensions or bubbled areas. To planners, that's a concept plan. The way that it's in our regulations right now, it's still mostly worded as a concept plan as planners talk about it, but it doesn't really make sense in the subdivision. Okay. So to try to fix that, we're going to require a work session for those items that county commissioners have directed staff to make sure we are still doing the work session for, and move the planning piece back into the zoning regulations. Let's see what some of the other things I had. The concept plan I've already mentioned. We're doing some cleanup with the exemption plat. Right now, the process is a public hearing. It's very onerous, and this is intended to be a quick, easy process for cemetery, fire, EMS type things, churches, things that are, and utilities especially. So things that don't really make sense to go through quite as detailed a process, and they're usually much smaller plats. So they're still going to have a process, but we're going to line it up similar to the plat amendment, so it will be administrative process, still having review through all the referrals. Let's see, we're going to take out the requirement for deed or other proof of ownership from the pre-app piece. It's still going to be required for formal, but a lot of times folks we have coming in for pre-app do not own the property. They're looking at purchasing a property and they want to find out if they buy this, what could they potentially do with it. So that tends to be a stumbling block and takes a little bit longer time. It's not impossible. It's just when probably 40 or 50% of the things you have come in for pre-app never make it to formal application, why make that a requirement up front? And there's also a proposed change in our EDZ subdivision to change the language. I believe the language we changed to say not more than 3 lots with known specific uses.
Okay.
And changes also to the certification blocks within all exhibits. We found as we were reviewing, and I had some discussions with Kara from our Elizabeth Fire District, that there were really only 1 or 2 areas that the fire district was signing off on, and other than that we were supposed to be referring back to a resolution 99-35, which requires an additional approval from them. And in our discussions, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Why are we having another item for us to track and add to the file when we can simply add your signature block to the recorded document? Then we know that everything's okay to move forward before it gets recorded. So this is a much cleaner, clearer process. We think it'll be more efficient than what was in process before. Like I said, there are a few other things. Probably the biggest one that pops in my mind, and it's really not even big, but it's big in that it's in the animal article. There is a change that we're proposing to take out the R1 district because it's listed in 2 places and it contradicts itself. Under one section, it says you can only have 2 horses in R1. Under another, it's listed with the agricultural, the R1, not R1, RA and AR and A2 and stuff. And if you follow that equation at a half unit, or a unit for a half acre, you could have up to 4. So, it doubles how many horses you could have. And like I said, there's a contradiction. So looking at it, it's clear it was not intended to be in the same as the agricultural districts. So we're just going to remove it from right there and make it clear. Like I said, there are a few others that are in there, but those were the ones that I've had prepared to go over. Did you have any additional questions?
When was the Planning Commission looking at these?
The Planning Commission will be looking at it next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday? Okay.
So I did finish my presentation for them, but it would be kind of out of order to present that.
No, and that's fine. I just kind of, when is that going to be available?
It will be coming before the Board of County Commissioners on July 8th.
Okay. And if citizens want to know exactly what's being considered, when does the packet for the Planning Commission
The
go?
packet is available as of Monday.
Okay.
So it is on the website.
Okay. All right.
The notice was fairly generic because it's hard to list all those items.
Yeah, I know this is kind of part of we kind of set a goal initially when we published the new regulations to look at them quarterly because we knew there would be some issues, and I think we've stretched that to every 6 months now after several quarterly reviews.
Yeah, and I've got a laundry list at the tail end of my presentation that'll be in before PC and BoCC coming forward of future.
Okay.
But those were items that I did not have time to fully research or wrap my hands around, so that's why they're going to be future, and we'll probably be starting on them while we're wrapping up this amendment.
Okay, thank you.
I just got a comment, as your comment just a few seconds ago reminded me of the pre-apps, of how few of those actually make it to formal applications. And I just went over this morning your pipeline report, and I noticed that you separated the pre-app situations from the real applications. And that makes it a lot more understandable, because you don't get caught up in detail that doesn't matter yet.
As you stated, yeah, once they come in for pre-app, we know that they're thinking about it, but until they make a formal application, it doesn't really amount to a whole lot for us to review because they could change things in between. And the handful that does come forward, that does happen often whenever they have their community meeting, that they receive some sort of feedback that they need to move things a certain distance or add certain landscaping or avoid certain landscaping. So, thank you.
Yeah, and the other piece to that is that for the pre-app is just like you described there, and the amount of due diligence that you do during that period of time is a lot less than once you have a formal application where you have documentation that supports things. But that pipeline report, I liked it a lot better.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. Alrighty. I think the next item we had was the county manager policy updates. It was pretty, okay, Bart. I know they were pretty straightforward. Some adjustments in authorities, authority levels.
Correct. I think the last time that we had looked at this in any draft form was just after you guys had come into office. And we've had new laws, new personnel, a whole bunch of new circumstances that have transpired since the last iteration of this policy. This policy has been the combination of meeting with a lot of staff members, looking at what new rules, regulations, and laws are in place. And I think it's a good update that provides flexibility and the ability to really conduct business efficiently here in the county. So not a lot of changes, but the changes that have been made I think are good ones. I would recommend that the current iteration is adopted. Here to discuss it today, not necessarily act on it today, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, I think probably be ready to adopt at the next meeting. It was pretty straightforward. I know there's some minor, some few different fonts and sizes and things throughout that just need to be cleaned up. But probably the biggest one was just a increase in authority from 200 to 300,000 for budgeted items. So again, it's still just sign offs on spending that's been approved within the budget already. So, but I think that makes a little more sense and keeps us from having to delay if something comes in right after one meeting before the next. Okay. All right. So moving on to action items, relatively simple today. It's just a series of minutes from previous meetings. So.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the May 13th, 2020 Board of Health minutes as presented and dispense with the reading of those minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the May 13th Board of Health minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we had the May 20th Board of Health minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the May 20th, 2020 Board of Health minutes and dispense with the reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Board of Health minutes from May 20th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the May 27th BoCC 2020 minutes as written and dispense with the reading of those minutes.
I'll second with one change.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I think that Miss Perkins' name in there, the first name is supposed to be Connie. And I forgot to call you and let you know that. But I second with that change.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with one change. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve the May 27th, 2020 Board of Health minutes and dispense with the reading.
Okay, motion and a second for the Board of Health meeting minutes from May 27th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And finally,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the June 3rd, 2020 Board of Health minutes as written and dispense with the reading of those minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second for the Board of Health meeting minutes from June 3rd. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay. Alrighty, board planning. For our upcoming meeting, like I said, I think we'd mentioned just some discussion on proposed distribution of care funds, or CARES Act funding. We should have our 2019 audit report for acceptance from the auditors. I believe we've got a workshop on that was scheduled for next Tuesday at 9, if that's okay. Yeah, once we get that finalized, that'll be a Zoom meeting with the auditors, so we can push that out publicly as well. And then if we could, I think the Fair Board will have kind of determined their plan for this year on the 15th, so if we could perhaps get Tammy and Callie in to kind of just give us an overview of what's going forward, so we can get that out. So I know a lot of folks in the public want to know what we're doing with Fair, and I guess so do we. Anything else you can think of? Okay, that gets us started. So we do have a land use item this afternoon, starting at 1 p.m. That'll be over at the Ag Building at the fairgrounds. Be considering a use by special review packet that was submitted by Quill Run Sports. So if there's no other business this morning, I don't see any, then I would say we are in recess at this time until 1 p.m. this afternoon. So, thanks.